just teach us, Rav Kevin.
Okay, Rosh Hashiva and Kohen. Okay, so there's one thing. Every day after Shachrit, we do the prayer of the day, and it relates to that day, and it's something I've been thinking about on different days of the week. We obviously they're different. The prayer is different, and the content is different, but for some reason, on a Tuesday and a Friday, it's the shortest. Wednesday is the longest. Thursday is slightly shorter than Wednesday. And I've been trying to figure out why this is the case. But what we will get to that in a minute. It says here the reason why that prayer of the day it was instituted is to make us mindful of the blessings and opportunities that come with each day. Now, why on a Wednesday it's longer is a mystery to me. Damon, do you know why? For some reason, the Wednesday, a Yom Yom Revi'i, is longer than the other days.
Not a clue.
I can't find any answer.
Not a clue.
Any answer? Gavin?
Maybe they're not davening with Rabbi Abba. That's why it's longer.
No, maybe because it's the middle of the week, you need it more. That's longer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maybe
guys.
because
Kev, continue.
last point, certain days of certain kochot and certain strengths and significance. Friday, we know it's because it's Erev Shabbos. Maybe that's why. Anyway, that's Damon. If you can find out, maybe if you have the chance, Wednesdays, if you have the time.
All right, guys. Where we left off last time was the first proposal from Rav Huna Bach here, who says that we cannot learn the laws of founds to extrapolate it to other similar cases. He was talking about if you have one that contaminates somebody's produce with tuma, or one who renders somebody's wine nesech by pouring it as a libation for an idol worship, both are cases of indiscernible damage and you're liable to pay. Biblically, you don't, because if it's not discernible in terms of a qualitative difference, but it's just spiritually prohibited in some manner or has caused a loss because of the spiritual prohibition, that is not considered legally discernible. The reason you pay is, well, the reason you don't pay biblically is you can return that object and you say to the person, what I took from you is before you, it's not my problem anymore. And rabbinically, they said that's not good enough. So if you have keep somebody's Shabbos Regal whiskey during Pesach as a Jew and you return it after Pesach, you can never render benefit from it. So you say, well, here's your whiskey back. And how does it help the guy? If you smashed it or you drank it, biblically, you'd have to replace it. But because there's no discernible damage, you wouldn't have to. So rabbinically, they had to intervene and say, no, you have to pay. But therefore, it's a penalty. Why is it a penalty? Because there is no compensation. And I had this good point yesterday with Gavin, where I'm pleased he brought up that he wasn't sure, but he was sure yesterday after we had the chat, because you can only compensate somebody for what was lost. If they return what was yours, there's nothing to compensate. If they drank it or smashed it or lost it, there's something to compensate. And therefore, if there's no legally discernible difference and it's only a spiritual matter, it would have to be a fine in order to get you to replace it with cash, Gavin. And therefore, that last case, if you put truma in someone's chulin, it renders it only fit for the Kohen. And therefore, Rav Huna Bach here is saying that that's proving that you can't extrapolate the case of one causative damage to another case of causative damage, because it's a fine, it's not compensation, and therefore it's not normative tort law, which it's provides the premise for a principle that can be deduced through a single case history. So what's Rav Yosef's remark to this is that he was saying he doesn't agree. This isn't proof of that. All this is proof of is that in the last case with Truma wine, all you're rendering is that only a Kohen can drink it, because normal Israelites and Levim can't have Truma Sheni. And therefore, because it's a small market segment, you have to sell the wine at a little bit of a discount, and therefore there's a minor loss to the original owner if he gets his wine back that has had Truma mixed with Chulin in. We just wait for Gavin a second.
No, I can hear you. I'm just fixing up my fan. This is too hot here. Carry on.
And
I'm
therefore,
hearing everyone.
Therefore, Gavin is saying the original case is if you take somebody's product and make it infected with tumor, then you can't use it at all. If you use somebody's wine for idolatrous practices, they can't use it at all. And that's a major loss. In this case, when you put a bit of truma in their chulin and you return it to them, they can sell it to a Kohen at a bit of a discount. And therefore, Rav Yosef says that these cases are not analogous, the last case, and it had to be added afterwards, because you can only extrapolate the case of a fan to another fan where the loss and the principle is the same. Meaning that in the first two cases, the loss was major. Let me wait for you, Gavin, it's distracting.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry, it's so hot in here. Just give me I should have done this before.
No problem, but
All right, go ahead. I'm done now.
sorry, but I'm pleased you're cooling off. There's no issue.
No, I've got to stay awake. I'm a bit tired, so this will keep me awake with the
So
cooling
what
as
we're
well.
saying is, Rav Yosef is saying this is not an example of that you can't extrapolate the law of fines to other similar cases. He's saying that cases are not analogous. This last case of Truma and Kulin only means that you have to, when you return it to the original owner, takes a little bit of a loss. But the first two cases of Nesek wine, you can't use the wine at all. When you're talking about Tuma, anybody that's holding at the level where they don't have Tuma, they can't use the product at all. So that's the first two cases a major loss. The last case is a minor loss. So it had to have a specific rabbinical addition so that even for a minor loss, although the case is not similar, that is to a case where the thief can't just return the product, but has to reimburse the value if there's even a minor loss. So he's saying, it's not that we don't learn fines from fines. It's that they have to be similar in nature, which is an excellent point if you think about it, guys. Excellent point. Okay. And now we're at the point what Rav Huna, how does Rav Huna counter this? Okay. Now, there's another version of the Brisa where he counters it, and it says, and this is the new part, but is it so that the Brisa speaks separately of one who mixes truma in someone's chulin because it represents a minor loss, and not because we generally do not extrapolate a fine imposed in one case to similar cases? And he's bringing a good point now. He says, but Rabbi Avin's father taught the Brisa in the following manner. So, originally the sages said that one who contaminates somebody's produce with tumah, or one who mixes truma into someone's chulin produce, both cases of indiscernible damage, by the way, is liable to pay it rabbinically. They then later added that one who renders someone nesek wine by pouring it as a libation for an idol, which is another case of indiscernible damage, is also liable to pay. So what he's saying is, even according to this other version, Rav Huna is saying that the reason they implied that is that they extended the ruling to include the case of one who renders someone's wine nesech. Yes, he's liable. But if they didn't extend the ruling to include this case, you would not be liable. So what he's saying is that in the second version, the cases are brought in a different order. So again, listen carefully to the order of the first case. Kevin, what's the order of the first case?
It's being Yayin Nesek. I don't know what the second one is.
No. Gavin, what's the order?
I'm not 100% focused. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Oh, mixing the two, mixing chulin with the truma.
No. All right, guys, you need to
No.
see the nuance here. Can
Just
Arthur
just
answer it, or
recap
is
that.
not?
I have
Let
actually
Arthur
been
have a
listening. I
chance.
missed that last part as well. I missed it completely.
Arthur can't. He's with a patient. Not if you're with the patient.
Ah.
Not if you're with the patient.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I have no patience. So
All right.
No, he was in this. Okay.
Right. All right. I wonder who's happing what, but please God and Shemaim.
no. I'm cutting. Says Kevin. I missed that last part. I didn't
All
actually hear
right.
what
So
you said.
again, the first browser, Gavin, says the following: brings two initial cases and one that was added later. The first initial case is one of making somebody's pure Tara produce tumah infected. You're spiritually infecting it with tumah. It's the first example. And then at the same time, there's the example of nesech wine, is that somebody stole your wine and used it for idolatrous practices. Later, centuries later, they added a case of somebody mixing truma in chulin. Okay? And Tosfot says on that basis that the reason is that it was pretty rare that somebody would mix truma with chulin. And therefore they had to wait for the case to actually occur before they added it. Because previous case histories on law are based on actual events that have transpired. But either way, it doesn't matter, because Rav Huna wants to use this, Gavin, as an example of saying that the reason the last case is added later, not at the same time, is because these cases are fines. Their product is returned back to the original owner by the courts. And there's no fine because it's returned. But the problem is the person can't use it because it's spiritually damaged. But if he argues with the person that stole it, he said, listen, I brought back your Shevis Rigo after Pesach. What are you complaining about? I don't have to pay. It's not compensation. I'm only compensating you if I drank it or dropped it. Therefore, it's in front of you. Don't complain. Rabbinically, they say you have to pay. It's no indiscernible damage. Why? Because it's a fine. If it was compensation, we'd say you wouldn't have to pay because you're not compensating the person for anything. What is his is before him. You actually physically have to pay with other money because he can't use the stuff, and therefore that was a rabbinic fine. So Rav Huna is trying to say that the whole reason they added the last case a few centuries later is you can't learn the laws of fine to other laws of fines in similar cases. Otherwise, you wouldn't need it to be taught by the rabbis on a third separate actual case. You could just learn it by extrapolation of concept with normative taught law. Therefore, with the fine, that's not the case. Do you get that, Gav?
Yeah. You did explain it to us yesterday and the day before.
No. So I'm telling you the order. Then Rav Yosef turns around and says, no, it doesn't mean you can't learn the lesson of a fine and apply it to other cases of a fine. The only reason the rabbis mentioned it specifically as a last case with truma is there's a minor loss because you have to you can only set it to Kohanim if it has truma in. No other Jew can take part of truma. So therefore, there's a slight amount of loss. And therefore, the last case is not comparable to the first two cases where there's total loss. And therefore, Rav Yosef is saying it doesn't mean you can't learn the laws from fines to similar cases. It's not a similar case. You see why it's in that order. Now, this last brisa we dealt with is a different order. It mentions Nesech 1 last. So what does it mention in the second brisa, the first two cases? That you're making somebody's product tumah when you steal it. It somehow got infected. And the fact is that truma was mixed into chulin, and therefore it's a minor loss. And therefore, in this particular case, Yaakov,
That would be a minor loss would be a fine, and Complete loss would be compensation,
No,
would you say?
no. Okay,
Either.
Kevin's brought up a good point. Kevin rightfully is getting a little bit confused because he was saying surely
No, it's too much info.
compensation.
I don't remember everything. It's just very,
No. I'm not criticizing anybody. We are
yeah.
making it.
We're not in your league, Damon, remember?
No, I'm not functional, but most of the time.
No, you
No,
are.
you in first league. We in third division.
We're in like the
At
third
best.
division.
At
So
best.
what we're saying here is that, Kevin,
Yeah.
the first concept I want you to understand, I don't think Arthur's paid attention to one word of the share.
Yeah, we can't answer that.
Yeah. Just wait till he stops talking there, Damon.
It's no,
Yeah.
listen, it's fine. I'll have a one. I'll talk to him about it privately. It's a joke. He thinks it's a joke. He's talking to the bicycle shop guy. Anyway, he's not attending, but he
Oh,
generally.
there we go. Okay. Ask him again.
No, it doesn't matter. Listen, let me ask you, Kev. So, all right, Kevin, this is what I wanted to tell you. What's the definition of compensation? Gavin, there are two reverse ways these cases are brought out. So that's what I'm going to show you. I promise you, when I read this, I hopped it the first time. But please God, I'm giving it over okay.
Are you are you going to tell us, or should I try and answer?
No, I'm asking you, what's the difference?
A compensation is where you restore something to its complete, in its completeness, in its
exactly.
It's not, yeah. If so,
exactly.
like someone drank the whole
car,
bottle of your whiskey, you must replace it, basically, like
exactly.
as you said. So
if you reverse in
a fine is
car,
if it's a minor, something minor, or that's a slight penalty. You didn't damage the object or completely. It's still usable, but there was still a bit of a slight damage to it, minor damage.
Okay, so I know where
must be
Kevin's getting confused. He's thinking that if it's not full compensation, it's automatically a fine. So, Kevin, I'm saying something a little different. I'm saying you got a thief, and that thief took your wine, your Chivas Regal whiskey before Pesach. He took it on Purim. He was going to drink it, and he forgot about it and it was in his place. And it was a special limited edition Chivas Regal. And for some reason, after Pesach, you went to him for dinner and you noticed that it was yours. How did you know it was yours? Because when you got the bottle, you had a special little insignia put in from your daughter, because your daughter gave it to you as a wedding anniversary gift. So it couldn't have been anybody else. Then you report this person afterwards to the Beis Din after Pesach when you saw it. And they worked out that the Beis Din had worked out he had this whiskey during Pesach. Now that whiskey you can't ever use. It's chametz. And therefore, if he returns that bottle to you, he's saying, I don't have to compensate you anything more than restoring what I took from you. And legally it's true. It's right. The problem is it leaves you with a product you can't use because it hasn't lowered in quality. If, for example, it became rancid, was left in the sun, it was drank, the quality diminished, it was broken, etc., there's something tangible wrong with it. In this case, it's a spiritual prohibition. And if he returns it to you, in no way damaged it. It's not discernible. And therefore, you don't have any legal claim other than him returning what he took. But that leaves you with a loss. Therefore, centuries later, the rabbis instituted a fine to pay in cash what that value of that whiskey was worth. But that's not compensation, because he's not compensating you. Even if he returns the original product, you can't do anything with that compensation of the return. It has to be a fine so that you paid the equivalent, because it's not compensatory in nature. Do you get that?
the case of the whiskey that he didn't sell it to the Beis Din, so you can't consume it even after Pesach. So
Gav, do you want to like?
Yeah, let me try. Let me try. So what? I'll just give it in absolute summary because that's all I know. So maybe it will help. I'll try. Kevin, what Damon's saying is that if you, let's say you borrow a whiskey from somebody, right, and you drop it on the ground and you break it, then you have to replace that bottle.
Yeah.
It's not doing paper, right? It's not doing paper. It's regular anytime during the year. You borrow a Chivas Regal, whatever. Is that a whiskey or a? I think it is.
It's a
And you drop
whiskey.
it on the
That's why I
ground and
used
it
that
breaks.
example for Pesach. That's exactly why I used.
Perfect.
that.
It's a whiskey. Perfect. So you drop it on the ground. Okay, it's not Pesach. You drop it on the ground. That's compensation in nature because of the fact that you broke it, you've destroyed it. You have to replace it. So you've got to compensate it with another bottle. All right. Now, what Damon's talking about in the second example, where a fine, so that's compensation. A fine comes into place when you don't drop that bottle on the ground, right? And it becomes impure. And it becomes impure for usage, but it's not damaged. You didn't drop it on the ground or anything like that. It became spiritually impure. So it could be because of Pesach. It could because you contaminated yourself, and because you just came from a dead body and you touched it, and you're giving it to a guy who happens to be a Kohen, and you can't give it to him. He can't utilize it. So as soon as the bottle is still fully intact, all right, and it becomes spiritually impure, then that is automatically a fine because you can't compensate him. Because you can go and take that bottle and put it in front of him and say, what is yours is yours. The reason why you can say that because it's still fully intact. The problem is that person who you took that whiskey from can't use it because it's become impure. In the other case where it's compensation is because you broke the bottle and you have to compensate him for what you broke.
So there,
I use
exactly,
the same,
Gavin. Exactly.
I use the same, not different examples to try not to confuse you. Does that help, Kevin?
yeah,
So it's a fine. So the rabbis then had to make
because
it a
it's
fine. Because it's not compensation.
Because the whiskey can still be usable. It can still be used.
No, the thing of it is, it's even
by someone else.
No. So, Kev, if I give you that whiskey back, I say to you, I've compensated you. What I took from you, I've returned. It's not going to help you because you can't use it.
Because it's got tumor in it.
Damage. The Beis Din biblically can only make me compensate you for a loss. So it has to be where the product has gone sour or off, or it's diminished in tangible, measurable quality, or I've broken or drank it, or I've lost it. But the minute
the person still can't use it then.
No.
Even if it's intact and it's been contaminated by
tumor. What I'm saying is compensatory means in nature is that what I've damaged, I will replace because it's not there anymore. It's either not there because it's not wine, it's turned to vinegar from a quality point of view, or it's somehow damaged in taste, in volume, or just full stop. I drank it or I lost it. So that's compensation. But if I give it back to you, I've said I've inverted commas compensated you, but as you said, Kevin, can't use it. And therefore the rabbis can't call it a compensation according to taught law. They can only call it a fine to make the person that damaged you pay. Because if he's brought it back to you and says what is yours is before you, he has in fact made compensation and restored what he took. But that doesn't help you because you cannot spiritually consume it because it's now prohibited. And therefore, the only way that the rabbis can ensure a payment is by calling it a knas, a fine. And that fine is for the value of that item, just like compensation. It's the same amount of money.
The value will be the same. So it's like they have to define it as a fine.
Yes.
Define it as a fine.
The light switched on. Yeshakayach Butti. That's
okay. So the value, and so if it costs like 300 rand, the fine will be 300 rand.
Yes.
Okay. So he's not going to say he can't, because otherwise he uses it as it's unfair. If he just gives a fine of 100 bucks, that's not reasonable.
You can't call it compensation because he gives it back to you. So it's you've got it.
So it's semantics.
I've compensated you. you've got it back. So it can't be listed under compensation. It has to be listed under
But
fine.
what's the difference then? But he's getting restored. He's getting
The
restored.
difference is very simple, is that Rav Huna Bachia is saying that if it's listed as a fine, you can't take this legal case and apply to a similar legal case based on extrapolating the principle. You can only do that for compensatory payments according to normative tort law. But the minute it's a knas, rabbinical in decree, and not biblical, derisa, every fine has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. You cannot take the principle and apply to similar cases. That's what Rav Huna is saying. That's exactly what he's saying. And Rav Yosef is saying it's not true. Rav Yosef is saying if it's a fine, we can learn a case that is similar by taking the same principle. It doesn't have to be compensatory to learn lessons. And Rav Huna is saying it does. And that's where they're disagreeing. And they're now using different proofs, which I'll bring backwards into the argument. But that's the point at which they're disagreeing, Kev.
on the what to define the payment as. Is that
No. The way they're disagreeing is Rav Huna Bachia is saying that the minute the rabbis install a fine as opposed to compensation, you can't learn fines from one legal case to another, even if it's similar. And Rav Yosef says, why not? Why not? If there is a precedent in legal history, why can't you?
they have to distinguish between a fine and compensation? At the end of the day,
No, but I'm saying
it has to be
I'm
distinguishable in terms of. But at the end of the day, what difference does it make? I mean, the guy has to get.
No, it makes a
he's
difference
getting-
in terms of legal precedent. Meaning, if we
Okay, like, can you give an example of, because the fine will be for the value of the whiskey that's been contaminated by tumor. So it could seem like compensation, but what can you give an example that's different? That let's say someone doesn't involve whiskey or
Kevin, let's try this, right? Technically, the wine has no value, cannot be used. So the guy's out of
Yes,
pocket
correct.
no matter what. Okay.
Yes,
So
sure, of course.
yeah, so you can't do compensation because you haven't actually done it. It's broken or anything. So he's got to be fined, okay, to get the money back. It's not a compensation. Compensation in addition to, you've done something and plus. It's not that. It's a fine for basically the guy can keep the bottle. Makes no difference. It's got no value. It's down to FS.
No, Kevin's got
So the
that. I tell you
No,
what,
I said that.
Kevin just
Oh, by
said
the
that.
way, Damon,
it's-
about the minor
they-
loss. About the
so
minor
that-
loss. Okay.
No, before we
It's
get
trying
there,
to teach. It's trying to teach that you can learn about learning where to apply fines.
Yeah, so all
Is that
Rav
what-
Huna is saying is you can't. Rav Yosef saying
You can't
can.
use it.
Yes, in other words, if we learn a certain legal precedent about an actual case, in the case of a fine of indiscernible, it's the only reason it's a fine is the damage is indiscernible. So, and why do we use this as an example of the wines? Because our actual case in the Mishnah, Kevin, is one that is basically going to the authorities and tittle-tailing to have the property extorted and confiscated from that person because he owes taxes. In other words, he's an informer. And if you're informing against somebody else, he could say, what did I do to you? I didn't know the person would actually take my advice and confiscate your property. I just phoned SARS. I didn't know they'd act on it. And it's wording. He says, I didn't actually physically steal your property. I just had words. And I didn't know they'd take action. So it's the same sort of indiscernible damage as somebody that gives you your product back after Pesach where you can't use it. It might not be direct theft where it's drank and stolen, or the property that's stolen from a person, but it can be that those sort of damages really cost the person money. But if it's not direct and if it's not measurable, Kevin, then it's not compensation. It has to be deemed a fine for two reasons: to make sure the injured party gets readdressed and gets paid back, and number two, as a deterrent for others. But because it's special by rabbinical decree, Rav Huna Bachia is saying that the rabbis in every case have to make an assessment call, and on that assessment call, it has to be judged on a case-by-case basis. And Rav Yosef is saying that it's not judged on a case-by-case basis. Once you set up a principle and a legal precedent of a fine, in similar cases, the rabbis can automatically apply that fine without a special Beis Din or Sanhedrin getting together to judge that case. That's what they're arguing about. The fact of it is, whether it's wine that's indiscernible or you're getting SARS to confiscate property because you're informed that he wasn't paying his taxes, both are not actual damages of setting guys' property alight, smashing the wine bottle, stealing the field, stealing the wine. You didn't take the field, and you returned his wine to him or his whiskey after Pesach, whether it's got tumah or chametz. So therefore, it's rabbinic in decree. It's a fine because what is his is before him. And since you haven't damaged it with your own hands, Kevin, or there's no quantifiable, measurable damage, it's not compensation. It's a fine. The rabbis had to do it as a deterrent and to make sure that person was paid. And that's where the two argue. Now, the reason between the first price and the second, we can't even touch that issue which we dealt with yesterday and today unless those first principles are understood. Do you get where I'm coming from, Gavin?
Yeah.
So,
James? Carry on, no, you carry on.
All I'm saying is the first case, Kevin, was Rav Huna says this proves that in the case of the wines, if you make a tumah or you use it for nesech, idolatrous practices, you can't learn those first two cases given by the rabbis. Otherwise, you would already know the later case. And that later case is quite simply when truma is mixed with chulin, only the Kohen can use it. So therefore, you're suffering a loss. And therefore, that proves that the last case had to be rabbinically implemented because it proves, according to Rav Huna, you can't learn the fines being implemented in similar cases. That's why each and every fine has to have its own ruling. And Rav Yosef said that's not true. The reason why the last case was added is because putting truma and chulin means you have to sell it at a slight discount so that the Kohanim would buy it. But it's a minor loss. Whereas if you use, if a Jew uses wine for nesech, for idolatrous observance, or you make somebody's wine tumah, you cannot use it at all, and therefore that's a major loss. So you would think that when the rabbis put a principle of a major loss, that you can only learn cases of major loss. Now with the sudden minor discount you have to get the Kohen to buy your product when it's returned to you from the thief. The rabbis don't deal with that because it's so minor. So we're saying that's why it had to be implemented afterwards as a special ruling, because they are different cases. Generally, Rav Yosef says you can learn the example of one fine into similar cases of other fines, but not in a case where the parameters are different and it's a minor discounted loss compared to a total loss. And therefore, it says the cases are not analogous, but that doesn't mean you can't learn adaptive reasoning with the precedence of a case of fines into a new case regarding fines. And Rav Huna is saying it is teaching you that. So that's the one first brisa as evidence. Tomorrow we'll deal with the second brisa of evidence, is when it's the other way around, when you can't say that the last case was because it was a minor loss, because we're going to show that the order is different and therefore it's going to have an implication. All right, guys, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
James, about the minor loss, okay, it can only be experienced by a parent because you're always looking for your kid.
Yeah. And also the one about you were talking about the informer going to SARS. The former has, so SARS can assess. It's got nothing to do with assessing the damage. You know, when you do a tax assessment, so they could also assess the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, they
Did you get
can.
that one, Gavin?
So the only SS that I know is ASICs, which I use for running. Is that similar?
Yeah.
I don't know. I give up. I'm just trying.
You work there, Gavin.
I just participate. That's all I do.
Guys,
And what a good job you did.
real. I hope it makes more sense. Guys, please
Yeah.
God, we can go on to the second part of the brisa now that you've absorbed the first. Kev,
What page is it? Still page 116, Damon?
I'll give you the pages. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, no, just tell me what page we still on?
It's
So
on the
116 or 117?
117th daf.
Oh, 117. Oh, we need, okay, so 117. Okay, I thought we were still
Yeah.
on 116.
Are you
Okay.
able to read the 117 daf at all?
Me?
Yeah, just to get a bit of a understanding.
I'll try go unless I get sidetracked tonight by other stuff, I'll try. Yeah.
Yeah, just try and see if you can do that because it's going to help. Yeah. All right. Cool.
I'll be like the Simpsons. I'll